This video is sponsored by me. I have recently been creating and publishing coloring books and journals on Kindle via Amazon.com that celebrate my Mexican American heritage. Growing up, I didn't find a lot of products or books that had that representation. Fortunately, as I've gotten older, more and more creators and artists that are Mexican American or just Hispanic or Latino have come out with amazing and beautiful products that celebrate our culture. I want to create things that remind me of my childhood, make me feel at home, that I would like to use. So that's what I've been doing with coloring books and journals. You can find them on my Amazon.com author page. You can follow me on there because I am just on a roll and I'm creating more and more coloring books and journals, and you can help me celebrate all of that wonderful artistic creativity by purchasing one of these for yourself or a loved one, or just spreading the word. Thank you so much for supporting me. Back to the show. Hey friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so glad that you've been liking some of the vlogs that I've recorded on my everyday Santa Fe life, what I like to do on the weekends, and yeah, stuff like that. So thank you so much for supporting me and watching those vlogs. Today I want to dive into a topic that has been on my mind since I literally moved to Santa Fe almost 2 years ago. And that is the jobs in Santa Fe. What you can find if you're looking for a job. What type of industries I've encountered since being here. And there's a little bit of story times in here, a little bit of my opinions, bias opinions, and just for your information. So let's get into it. I moved, as you know, to Santa Fe from Albuquerque, and then before that, I am a Colorado native. I was living in Denver, Colorado. I moved to New Mexico to further my career in the film and TV industry. So as you may know, New Mexico has grown as this really big market for people in the film and TV industry to come film here. Since 2019, there has been so much happening in that area. Netflix brought down a studio to Albuquerque. There's been a couple of other studios that grew. There was a bit of, I guess, what would you call it? There was a bit of delay because of the pandemic, and then again this past summer because of the strike, so there was a lot of delay in that area. But now I can proudly say that things are picking up, at least for me, and I'm super excited to be doing that because that is what I came down here for. So when I first moved to Santa Fe, I was looking for a gig or gigs because that was what I was doing in Albuquerque. I was doing Shipt, I was doing a little bit of Instacart sometimes. I tried Amazon. I tried Spark, the Walmart delivery app. So I actually was making a living with just those delivery apps. I was getting a little bit burnt out towards the end, just a lot of driving, a lot of dealing with customers and going into stores. But besides that, I actually really enjoyed it because you get to put yourself on the schedule. It's super flexible. It was working with my auditions or traveling. At the time, I was still traveling back to Colorado for my other agency and auditions and other jobs. But Santa Fe, it's a different story. I've mentioned a little bit that Santa Fe doesn't have a true gig economy. Santa Fe is made up of a couple of different populations and demographics. There's the native Santa Fe people, and I don't mean native like Native American. I mean, there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of the generations of people of Hispanic descent that have been here. There's also people who were born and raised here, no matter what their ethnicity or demographic is. But then there's a population of retired people, older people that move here and continue to move here. And recently, I would argue there's the population of people who are just really curious about Santa Fe because it's a beautiful place, it's an artistic place, and those people are either coming from LA, they have money, they're producers, they're in the film industry, or they're people like myself and my husband who moved down here for the industry. We're not, from here, but we do make up that percentage of people who are just moving over here, whether it's because people who relate to us are moving from other states that are no longer affordable, they're looking for something new, they're artists, etc. So those are kind of the populations that I have encountered here in Santa Fe. So with the older generation, the boomers, they are retired, so they're not looking for a job or a career. They make up that percentage of people, consumers, homeowners, and other types. The people who are the locals, who are the natives, they are pretty successful. And I've noticed that there's a trend, even though New Mexico doesn't have the best education, let's be honest, it's pretty bad. There is a trend with people who are from here. They are very entrepreneurial. They own businesses. They work at credit unions. They teach. They work for the state. And mind you, there's not a huge population here and in the state overall, so there are a lot of opportunities if you get in. If you get in through the state, if you're working at the credit unions, if you're teaching, if you are a restaurant owner or a business owner, a small business, owner, there's a lot of that. And it's really cool to see because even though there is not a lot of education or upward mobility because of education, there is a lot going on here with people who are successful through their businesses. Whether it's opening up a gym, a restaurant, a really good friend of ours down in Albuquerque has a very successful meal prep service. Coffee shop owners, retail owners, galleries, other things like that. It's really inspiring to see. So there is quite a bit of a misconception, I think, from other states and people from other states that they come down here and they wonder if they're not getting the traditional education, which now we know equals huge amounts of debt. What are they doing? Well, they're not. They're opting for opening up those businesses, being entrepreneurs, and making a really good earning with that. Buying homes, supporting a family, starting a family, and not being in debt like the traditional person might be, myself included. So that's really cool to see. What else are people doing here? They are, like I said, they're teachers, they're substitute teachers because there is a huge demand for that, I think, across the nation. They are working at the coffee shops, they're working at the restaurants. It is a very touristy place, as you know, so there's a huge demand for people to work in restaurants, in the coffee shops, in the service industry, in hospitality. There's a couple of famous spas here, restaurants, hotels, bed and breakfast places around in and outside of Santa Fe, horse ranches. Like, there's so much that you could do. So a lot of people opt to do that. And like I said, when I first got here, I was looking for a gig because I was used to that. I didn't find it. Instacart does operate in Santa Fe. but I believe I tried it for like the first month after a bartending job that I absolutely loved ended up, the place that I was working at ended up closing. So that's another story. Um, so I decided to try Instacart here, and I was pretty disappointed. I'm sure there are people here who are probably making a killing, but my concern and what I quickly found out is that people don't tip that much here, even though the income ratio is much higher here than it is in Albuquerque. And that was disappointing. They're also much more entitled. There's a lot of retirement homes here, and so a lot of the bundles were going to those customers, which I don't mind. I think it's actually a really good idea to have Instacart operating in a place that has a lot of retirement homes, nursing homes. I think that's wonderful, but they don't tend to tip at all. So that was disappointing. There is DoorDash, Grubhub, there's the traditional delivery jobs for Pizza Hut and Domino's, but it's not the way it is in Albuquerque, and definitely not the way it is in like big metros like LA or Denver or whatever other cities. So, like I said, I was working at a restaurant as a bartender in Lamy, which is 20 minutes right outside of Santa Fe. It's a very historical little village. And the saloon that I was working at was absolutely beautiful. It was historical. It was haunted. It had everything. And I love that. I love that. So I got to bartend in the original bar, saloon area since the late 1800s, and I was loving it. I was only working Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A lot of the businesses here, the restaurants, close pretty early, so that's very normal. Friday, Saturday, Sunday were the only times that it was open, and it operated, I think, from like, I want to say it operated from like 3 p.m. and closing was 10 p.m. So in a way, if you're an industry person, you know that can be really chill, or it could be maybe those hours are not enough and you get most of your tips after hours. For me personally, I loved it because we were still making good tips, good money, and it was also a good balance, and I wasn't staying up and having, those issues that I did in the past. So I loved that, but unfortunately there is a slow period here in Santa Fe. I think it runs around, some may argue otherwise, but I think it's around mid-November is when it starts and ends around March, and then March through the summertime and the fall is when the tourist season is at its highest. Not that it's done, because people still come here, but that's when it's at the highest. So the restaurant being in a village outside of Santa Fe, it is very popular with locals, but this place has also been open and closed throughout so many years. It's had similar issues. The person who was managing it was not doing a great job. So it closed, and he decided to tell us about 2 weeks in advance. So that was heartbreaking. I did try to get other bartending jobs in town. I either didn't like the way that the managers operated it, because there's a lot of ego in a lot of these places. It's a very small town. People know each other. Or it just I wasn't making enough money. I was up against a very toxic work environment, etc. And so I just decided to do something else, and luckily I was doing some copywriting, so that was great. But as you can probably imagine, the people who are in the restaurant industry here in Santa Fe, if you are able to secure a pretty good job within one of the popular restaurants or hotels in downtown or around the city, then you're set until it's slow season. A lot of people save up money so that they can get through that slow season. A lot of people just end up going to other jobs. I've known somebody who has probably at the time like 4 different jobs, just different part-times, because that's another thing that you run across is a lot of part-time schedules and a lot of part-time jobs that people are offering. And it may work for some people, but other people are looking for a full-time set schedule type of job. So that was something that was like, I don't know. There are certain businesses who, for some reason, only want you part-time at their establishment, but don't want you getting another job because they don't want you to burn out. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. You can't hold people hostage and then not pay them, especially in a city like Santa Fe where the cost of living is only increasing. Like, you can't do that. But they get away with it, and then they wonder why they have such a high turnover. Then there are other places, like I applied to a part-time position at Sephora at a Kohl's here, and it was what I thought was going to be great. Also, I wanted to learn about makeup because I don't really know how to do makeup. I thought it would be fun, something new and interesting to do, and still allow me the flexibility to do the other creative things that I'm doing. So I filled out the application resume. They called me right away for an interview. I went in, the energy, because I'm a big energy person, it was off, very passive aggressive, not saying hello, good morning, or anything like that, which I'm not like that. They call me to the back to fill out another application where they're asking me for my availability, and, I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is just like a formality, whatever. I put that I was only available Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day, whatever time. The manager kind of looks at it and she's like, so you're only available Friday, Saturday, Sunday? I'm like, yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for a part-time position. And I'm assuming those are the busiest days, right? And she's like, yeah, but what we actually want is for you to be available every day, be open to the flexibility, because our needs change every day and we need to be able to schedule you how we see fit. Again, in my mind, I'm like, so you're trying to hold me hostage and I won't be able to potentially find another job because I have to be available for you for a part-time basis. Got it. So I just, as nicely as possible, I said, oh, well, I wish Kohl's would have said that on the application and I would have known. I know that was a little petty, but I don't care. And she's like, oh yeah, I don't know why it didn't say that. But yeah, that's what we need. And I was just like, oh, well, don't worry about it. It's fine. If this is not going to work out, it's fine. And she was kind of taken aback by that because I don't think she expected me to say that. And I just stood up and I shook her hand and I was like, this place seems like a lot of fun to work at. I just wish it would have said that. And she's like, yeah, I know. So I left, but that is what I think is similar theme going on here. So be aware of that. Another story that I have similar to that, and this is another reoccurring theme that I think happens here with the older, they may be retired, they might have moved here 20 plus years ago, people who probably opened up a retail store or an art gallery and, have a home and probably paid 2 pennies and a banana for rent back in the day. I applied to another part-time position at a retail store in downtown. And I like to be honest, and sometimes I know that you shouldn't always disclose what you're doing. And there have been times in the past where I don't, because I don't want people knowing what I'm doing. There's too many questions being asked. They don't need to know my business, especially when it comes to being an actor. But this time, for some reason, I decided to be honest, and I found it through Craigslist, first of all. And I actually do have a lot of successful stories that have, led me to jobs through Craigslist. That's another story. But anyways, I reached out to them and I told them that I was looking for a long-term part-time position for, again, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, anytime, because I am an actress and I do that during the day, and I also do other creative things. This person called me, this older gentleman. He left a voicemail. I called back. He was at first what seemed like polite, and then his tone changed. First of all, he put me on speakerphone and he was like, "Oh, my partner's here. I want you to talk to both of us." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then his tone changed and he was very serious and stern. And he's like, "Well, I want to ask you a question. It says here that you work in the film industry. What exactly do you do?" And I was just like, "Okay, well, I'm an actress primarily." And he's like, "The reason why I ask is because how do I know that you're not gonna run off if you get a job and just leave me here hanging at my business?" And I was just like, "Well, that's not gonna happen because I audition during the week. I may get a job. That job maybe comes every 3 months. It's probably only for a day, and that's just how it goes." And he's like, "Well, I don't believe it. My daughter works for Netflix." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "I don't work on the weekends. I wouldn't, it would be so rare. I'm in the union, and it would be so rare that they would require actors to be filming over the weekend." And he was like, "Well, my daughter works over the weekend." I didn't even say anything. I didn't ask, "Oh, well, is she in HR in the office? Is she doing other things?" There are literally hundreds of different jobs in the industry. I didn't even bother. And he's like, "Well, I think you would be great for this position. Can you come by?" And I said, "Yeah." But then once I hung up, this happens to me. I don't know if it happens to you. You start kind of thinking about everything's settling in, and you're like, "Wait, that was kind of weird. That was off." So I decided to just politely email, that I was going with another job and declined to continue and go in for an interview. And I think that was just the best decision. I didn't even hear back from him. And I was like, "Oh, not even a thank you for contacting us," or whatever. Which I think I absolutely did the right thing. So yeah, that's my little story. It's kind of interesting how you're supposed to be honest about your situation, your intentions, even though you do anticipate being there long term. People just, they don't like it. They don't like it. So that was my other interesting story. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people also have jobs as teachers. New Mexico, as I mentioned time and time again, education is pretty bad here, but I do know that they have tried to fix it in, the last couple of years by either paying teachers a little bit more than the national average, or trying to come up with other policies or solutions. So there is that. There are a lot of incredible educators here, and I say that because I've done substituting as well. And if you're interested in that, I think substituting is another potentially great gig or career or job that you can have here. There's a huge need for that. Along with, there is healthcare, a lot of healthcare positions, people, traveling nurses, nurses in general. There's not a lot of practitioners here. Not a lot. So that may be something maybe someone is thinking about doing, whether you're going to be operating your own office or whatever it is, because New Mexico, if you are a nurse practitioner, you do have the authority to do a lot of things here. So that would be great. Another trend that I've seen is that people will work at the labs in Los Alamos, which is about a 45-minute drive northwest? Maybe. Look it up. So a lot of people will live outside of Santa Fe, and they will work at the labs. The labs employ not just scientists, but a lot of accounting, a lot of marketing, a lot of just different types of departments, which I think is great. I have heard that they have amazing benefits. They have a really good starting salary. They have a lot of perks, a lot of hybrid roles, so you could either work from home and then travel there, or travel there all the time or whatever. And you don't necessarily need a degree, so that's awesome. A lot of people enjoy that. They are pretty strict. I don't know if this is for everybody, but they do drug test you, and that also includes alcohol. I don't know if it's changed. That's what I've heard from people who work there. If that's not your cup of tea, you can also apply to a lot of the credit unions here. There's a couple of them, and they have a bunch of positions. They do offer a lot of perks. Their health insurance is great. So that's another area. A lot of people work in law enforcement. So there is the prison right outside of Santa Fe. A lot of cops live in Rio Rancho because it's cheaper, and it's also about a 45-minute drive to and from. So that is another area. And gosh, I think there's more, but those are the jobs that I have observed that I know people work in, or I've done. So yeah, if you are thinking about moving here or exploring your possibilities, and one of the things that you're thinking about is what type of jobs are here, that's kind of what you're going to find. There could be more, there could be other ones. So yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if there are other topics about Santa Fe or New Mexico that you would like to know about from this girl. Thanks so much for supporting me, and I will see you in the next one.